Basketball, baseball, and tennis. What do these three things have in common? Volleyball. But how could that possibly be the case? Well, you will soon find out as I talk to you more about the beginning of the game, the changes that have happened, and the present-day game that we now know of today. I am here to inform you about everything I can to understand the game of volleyball from my own personal knowledge and experience, and information from plenty other sources as well. So to begin, let's talk about how basketball affected the game of volleyball. Could you believe that volleyball really stemmed from the idea of basketball? Well, it's true. Back in 1895, William G. Morgan felt compelled to create a less violent and active sport for businessmen participating in YMCA activities. According to the article Volleyball by Robert Levicka, the original game of mintonette incorporated several other ideas from different sports, such as the 9 innings of baseball, the services of tennis, and a similar ball to the basketball. A short 15 years later, a man by the name of Alfred Helsted realized that the game of mintonette required volleying a ball back and forth, which is how the name volleyball became about. This is according to Volleyball History, an article by Ethan Orman. Another journal titled Volleyball Builds Its Popularity on the Sand states just that. Court volleyball, along with sand volleyball, made its Olympic debut in 1996. So now that we have a little bit of background information about the game, let's talk about how it was played. The goal of the game has pretty much always remained the same, to hit the ball on the floor and score on the opposing side. The article Sports History of Men and Women's Volleyball by Sarah McGuire states that back when volleyball first started, you could only receive a point when the serve was on your side, and you could not receive a point when the opposing team's missed serve. It also stated that the net was only 2 feet wide, which is different from today's 3-foot wide net. Another change was that if the ball hit any of the lines from the dimensions of the court, it was considered out of bounds. But perhaps one of the biggest differences today is that you could have as many players as you wanted, although they were normally only up to 1 to 4 players. So now let's talk about the changes that have brought us to the game that we now know of today. It is impossible to talk about every minute change in uniform and materials used, so I will just talk about some of the different detailed ones, such as the points, the number of players, the net height and width, and the width of the court. The original idea of having 9 innings per game, where players could only serve a specific amount of time per game, disappeared. In 1900, a 21-point game was established. In 1916, a 15-point game was established for tiebreaker matches. And currently, in 1991, the most recent change was a 25-point game. Perhaps one of the most recent changes to scoring was that you could score a point when the serve was not on your side, and that you could also receive a point for the opposing team's missed serve. Now let's talk about some of the more drastic changes from the original game of mintonette. Stated before, back in 1912, you could have as many players as you wanted per side, as long as they were equal. But later in the year of 1912, it was changed to being required to have 6 players per side. And in the article 411 Volleyball, back in 1953, the 3-touch per side rule was established. A couple other minor changes was that the net was increased by 1 foot and the court was increased by 10 feet. The article, Volleyball, How High Can It Rise, states that this game was originally made for the use of men, but is now arguably one of the most popular female sports. So these are only some of the few changes that have happened throughout the years. So now that we know a little bit more about the origin of volleyball, let's talk about the objective. The objective of volleyball has pretty much stayed the same as stated earlier, to score a point on the opposing side, and that pretty much sums it up. However, there are many fundamental aspects of the game that get you to this stage. Although there are plenty more, I'm going to talk to you about the 3 most basic ones. The bump. This is the core defensive position. It requires you to get low in a low stance, push the ball out with your arms and legs to the setter. The setter sets the offense. Through the use of her hands, she pushes the ball out, up and out to the basic offensive player, the hitter. The hit, or more commonly known as the spike, is through the use of your arms and legs to jump up into the air and hit the ball down onto the opposing side. Now, this won't always end up in a point, but these are the main three that you want to see to get the main outcome that you want for the game. There are plenty others, such as blocking, serving, and many other forms of passing that you will see throughout the game, but these are just the major parts. So it is safe to say that volleyball has made a lot of progressions from the original game of mint and net, from the very distinct moves that it has created and the many rule changes that it has had. So I hope that through this speech, you now have a more basic understanding of the beginning of volleyball, the many changes the sport has brought, and the objective of the game. So next time you're going up for that killer hit or diving onto the ground to keep it from touching it, make sure that you know that it was made possible from a man wanting to create a game for recreation without the perspiration.